Call the Public Works Committee meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Cindy?
Here.
Seth?
Here.
Todd?
Here.
Andrew?
Here.
And Crystal?
Here.
First period for public comment. Nobody here. Anybody online want to say something? Please give your name, address, and limit it to 3 minutes. Hearing nothing. Approval of committee minutes from April 8th, 2025.
This is Crystal. I would move approval of the minutes from April 8th, 2025 with no additions or corrections.
Todd will second it.
Motion by Crystal, second by Todd. Any discussion or questions from Seth or AJ? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Review and approval of proposal from Fireline for backflow prevention maintenance at library and city hall.
All right, this one's kind of a small contract, but it's a contract nonetheless. So coming here at Public Works. So this is for obviously the City Hall building and the fire station. Fire line is in my mind, and the library. So essentially this is for the fire protection system. There's two things, just making sure they go through all this, making sure an annual inspection of the sprinkler system. And then also there's a backflow preventer that has to be registered and tested. So that is included in these. And so essentially it would be $400 per facility per year. Yeah, which is great. Keeping prices. I had this happen just the other day, and I'm trying to be efficient today, so I won't go too far into the conversation because we have not a lot of time for all of what we're doing. But I ended up getting a proposal on the similar services, and he didn't realize our contract hadn't expired, and it was almost double. So it's nice when we can kind of keep them in a good price.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve the proposal.
This is Crystal, and I'll move approval of the proposal from Fireline for backflow prevention maintenance for the library and city hall.
Todd will second it.
Motion by Crystal, second by Todd. Any further discussion? I assume they don't turn the sprinklers on in the library to test it. Okay, a roll call, please.
Seth?
Aye.
Todd?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Crystal?
Aye.
And Cindy?
Aye. Review and approval of pay request number 5, 2024 sewer project.
Okay, so this is pay request number 5 for the Badger project, which is our sewer project 2024, extending into 2025. And so the current payment due, this isn't a big pay request, it's $13,506. Sorry, I'm trying to make this a little bit easier to see. And 57 cents. And like I said, there's not a lot here. In this one, there was like miscellaneous quantities. Let's see. I'm trying to find all of them here. So like backfill that they had that they brought in for Chicago Avenue. There was Broadway. So here's another one here. I'm going to zoom back out so we can see that better. More excavation, removing asphalt, inlet protection. This one was slightly higher. We always kind of monitor what this column is because this is the amount that was from what the quantity that they assumed to versus what they actually put in and are charging for. And this is because we added a sewer service on Broadway. So kind of an uneventful pay request, but yep, that's what we're looking for, approval to head on to council for that $13,506.57.
This is Seth. I make a motion that we approve the number 5 pay request for the 2024 sewer project for $13,506.67. I might not have remembered that correctly.
Oh, that was great.
57 cents.
Oh,
57
57 cents.
Okay, we have a motion by Seth. Second?
Todd will second it.
Yeah. Second by Todd. Any further questions, discussion? Roll call, please.
Todd?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Crystal?
Aye.
Cindy?
Aye.
And Seth?
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval to go out for bids for Center Avenue project and possible action on project. This should be interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so this is kind of a two-part thing. It says I have some questions about approach for design, which I'll do briefly, and then to approval to go out for bids. So if you remember, we talked a little bit about this before. We had some different ways of looking at getting funding, and we decided that we're going to go back and keep the Safe Drinking Water and Clean Water Fund loans and principal forgiveness that we already had in place, as well as the MSID, the DOT money. And so that's what we're going forward with for funding. And as we speak, there's a lot going on in the background. One is that Cheryl and Nate and I are going through the financial numbers. Nate's been talking to Sean about how we're going to do this because there's, when we get in this situation, that was a really nice thing about the appropriations funding is it just made it so simple. There was one grant agency more or less that we deal with. In this scenario, we're dealing with all these different formats. For example, the DNR will pay us as we go. The DOT wants to pay us after the project's done. And then some part of it is just some money that will be funded by the TID. So there's lots of that stuff going on. There's also a mad dash by our engineers to get this finalized. So we had finished the water and sewer more or less. We had biddable documents in order to get the grant application in, but we did not do any of the surface work because we knew that anything we did before we got approved, if we got the appropriations money, we wouldn't be able to count for engineering. So we were trying to limit how much we were doing so that we could get funded for it. So I've met with Nelson Zager Center just yesterday, going through some of these things because we're starting to get into the particulars of how we might be changing things. And in their area in particular, we'd like to do some improvements. But there's a few things overall that I need your input on. So the first one is looking at our decorative lighting. So we have decorative lighting on Main Street. And we have decorative lighting, whoops, I'm up a block. And we have decorative lighting on Court and Jefferson and Terhune on the west side of the street. And we have decorative lighting all the way up Rock Avenue. And on this side, it's been a little bit hit or miss. One, because they're old and once some of them have just stopped working or, have been removed over time. But also because there's a few different things happening. One is that the banks seem to have adopted our style of lighting. And so they actually have in their parking lots lighting, and often they're very close to our lighting. And so it's kind of we're duplicating things in a sense. So for example, there's a light here that the bank has where it's really close to a current light. The other thing that we have is our Excel lights. So we lease or get a fee that we pay to Excel, and they put a light up on our behalf and we pay them for it. And in some cases, we're lighting very close to where the decorative lights are already. So a good example is in Jefferson, there's a decorative light here and there's a light pole with a light here. And it's sporadic. So we have a couple here on Jefferson and some on the end. We have, I believe it was 2 here, and then there's some on the end. And it's not really very consistent. The other thing is, I will say that there is, when we did the decorative lighting on Rock Avenue, we stopped in the areas where we started getting into the residential area. And in Center Avenue, it's a little bit different where one side of the street, the west side seems to be a lot more in business, commercial. There is 1 or 2 houses in the mix. But then on the east side, and besides the church, there's pretty much residential until you get up to Decker. So lighting is so complicated. There's the people that like the lighting and don't like the lighting, and it's very hard to control the decorative lights, and it's also very expensive. So that's where I'm going next here. So
How about maybe you're going to talk about this, isn't there a special light in front of the bathhouse, WPA bathhouse that we're talking
Yeah,
about.
that is another
that
thing.
Dave Creer was,
Yeah, so
proposing?
we have Dark Sky folks
yeah.
working to see what kind of different fixture that we could have in the current decorative lighting.
So we're going to consider that.
Yeah, so I think that one is like a smaller change. I mean, we could just have a different kind of light in it, but the lights themselves are pretty expensive, right? And so this is what I wanted to talk about. I'm gonna move this. I think we know who's here.
Talking about the fixtures.
Yeah, let me get a good, here, I could probably pull up a good example of what it looks like. It would be the entire light. So we would replace the light in its entirety. This. So those are the ones that are not owned by us. And these are some of the ones that are owned by us, right? So it'd be like, oops, as I go right through it, this is what we're talking about. And so when we're talking about it, we're talking about we replace the entirety of the light because you can see these bases are in bad shape. Some of them are concrete. They would need to be fully replaced. So my question for you is, what do we want to put out for decorative lighting? So they're not cheap. And this is not the version that I wanted to bring up. One moment, please. I have two versions of that one and I closed the one that I wanted. Oops. Give me 1 second. So in essence, the decorative lights, if we were to put 8 of them, which is what we estimated would be like the total amount of lights that we would put up. If we put it sort of everywhere, so to speak, not as complete as what we would have when we did like Rock Avenue, for example, because I feel like a lot of people felt like there was too much light on Rock Avenue. Their current proposal is $268,349 to get 8 lights. Right? So that's what I mean. They are expensive.
But
So
this
there's
is-
2 things about that.
well,
Sorry, go
can you-
ahead.
Or just the same fixture we have now.
It would
right?
it would look,
Match
so
what
we
we-
would end up having the ones that are more on Rock Avenue. So they would be more like, they would look very similar, but these ones are the new ones. Oh, I can't.
But
go
that's
down there.
different from what's in front of the future walking center.
So don't worry about the fixture
Don't talk
itself.
about that?
It's the whole light and like putting all the electrical in that we're
Mhm.
talking about right now.
Okay,
Like the temperature of the light and how it looks is like a factor of it, but it won't significantly change the budget. It might change the operational budget, like using less electricity, but it wouldn't change like this price that we're looking at right now. So it might look more like this, but it's still those like the decorative lights. Let's see if I can, and then if I go, like, right. These are the most new version of the lights are like these, where we have a concrete on the bottom and then there's like a cap on it. And these are the ones that they changed the fixture, but we're talking about like putting the entirety of the light in, right? And that's what I want to decide today. So this is what they put in for 8 lights. And so that means that's the conduit in the ground. It's like the entire electrical works in order to have the lights functioning cabinets for them, because there's a cabinet that makes it turn on and control it, and everything that we do with the lights. Originally, we had talked about having, like, do we want any decorative lights on Center Avenue? Okay, well, this is a choice we have to make, right? So with 4 lights, it's never quite exactly half, because it's like 150,000 was what they had as the estimate before, because there's things that are needing to be there regardless, such as like the cabinet and control panel. So one option I would see is not doing Center Avenue and doing Jefferson. The other option is leaving it in. So I guess that's one of the things that we need to decide today. Our proposed capital improvement plan has 444,000 allocated from TID 6 for the project. And under this scenario with the 8 lights, we are at 588,000. So we're over what we've proposed, which means we're stealing from something else, which is our option. We can certainly do that, but it is more than what was originally put into the proposal. If we change it to the 150,000 for 4 lights and just do it on the side streets, we're getting like into that same number, 470. So this is something we need to consider about how many lights we want to put in. Now, there isn't a lot of time to consider this. We're looking at bidding or putting the advertisement out on April 30th. But it doesn't mean we couldn't change quantities. We can put addendums in here. So if you, I felt like this was a pretty straightforward, but I'm feeling like my feedback I'm getting maybe not so straightforward. And so we can certainly think about this if we don't have a set answer tonight. So that's one of the things I need some feedback on. The other thing is when we did Rock Avenue, we made a point of filling in green space where we could. So like as a rule of thumb, like for example, this area, which we're actually not doing this section right here because it was done with the Decker project, but we could go into these boulevards. We always put green back. Almost, the only times I can think of that we didn't would be like in front of the tire shop. They worked in that area that there was no way that was going to work. There are some scenarios where it's just too small of a boulevard that it doesn't make sense. But I guess my question to you is that still our direction? Where we can, we put it in. I mean, again, there's going to be some considerations. So like, for example, here with Nelson's, which is why I've been talking to them, there's a lot of concrete and pavement. And so there's some of it is functional and other of it is preference. So, in those scenarios, are we still putting forward the idea that we want green space, grass, where we can? I will say it's significantly cheaper. It is also less impervious surface. So it really does, for me, it's the way I would prefer it be. And we had pretty strong direction last time that that's how we wanted to go about things. But again, wanting to have a check-in about that's still our path forward. Again, I'm not, it would be where feasible.
Okay, any thoughts about the grass on the boulevards?
Well, and I think it's really a good thing. The only question I have is who's doing the mowing?
It's the property owners, which is why they don't
Okay.
love it.
Okay, then it's fine.
But I mean, we worked through it on Rock Avenue, and I would say that I have had conversations with Nelson's. We're still in conversation, but they are probably one of the ones that would have the most change, and they didn't seem too terribly concerned about it. They were more concerned about just the functionality where they need it not to be grass, but they were open to it. I think it will be received okay, but it certainly does change things for people that don't have to currently.
It's definitely more attractive, I think. And being it's Earth Day.
Yeah, right.
Any AJ, Seth, Todd, any thoughts?
I guess I trying to keep up the best without seeing everything. We were talking about a $440,000 budget for this project. And did you say that just 4 of the lights is 150,000 of that?
Of the decorative lights? Yeah, it's not just the light and the base. It's putting all of the network of the electrical in and the cabinet. But yeah, they are not cheap.
Sarah, I wonder if Seth's question had more to do with the overall cost of the project. I think he's hearing 460 some thousand, and
Oh.
that's just the TID 6's portion of it. There's a whole
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I just thought from an outside first time hearing it, it seemed like lighting was a very big percentage of what that budget was. So I just wanted to get that, and it makes sense now that that's just the TID 6 budget part of it.
Yeah, oops. I was
Still
trying-
costly, but
It is still costly. I think this was 268. So the full project cost currently budget-wise is 3.7 million.
Yes, I don't know why we need all the lights on Center Avenue, personally.
Well, the only thing I think about is we're changing traffic patterns a lot. In my experiences lately is that a lot more people are using Rock and Center than they have been. So it would be maybe more safe. That's just,
So don't worry about it from a lighting perspective, because if there is no, we would make sure there's lights like the Excel lights, but it's more of the decorative style, because that's something we put in ourselves versus like we can get it, pay for it and put the electrical in versus they would just charge us.
How about the grass? Could we just talk about maybe one thing at a time?
Sure.
So are we kind of in agreement that the grass is a good idea? Okay,
Yeah, I'm all about grass.
Yeah, I'm for the grass. Yep.
okay. So now we have to decide if we want lights on Center and Jefferson or just Jefferson, the decorative.
I would say
lights.
Jefferson and Court, like, so when I say 4, I was thinking there would be 2 on Court and 2 on Jefferson. But
me,
we could
I
also
see
just
those.
decide that.
And there's
differently.
going to be street lights still on
Yes.
Center irregardless.
Correct. Yeah, we always light intersections and we'll make sure that there's some lighting there.
And
It's
you-
just,
Pardon me.
yeah, go ahead.
And
Sorry.
you said 440 was what was planned, budgeted for that? And we're up to
So,
470 if we do 4.
so the difference between the two budget numbers is the current 8 of them was
Right.
200 and yeah. So I'm trying to get us closer
Yeah.
to our original proposal. Yeah, and it was I believe it was 477,000. Yeah, maybe it was 467. Now that I think about
Yeah,
it, but
Sarah, the number you gave me this morning was 466.
66, 477,
Okay.
466.
So,
So it gets us closer to what we
Yeah.
had expected.
my idea. Okay.
Okay, and then, so, sorry,
so
were you
that's-
going to ask the question?
No, no, go ahead.
There's one more question about it, which is, and it's more of just a check-in. So with Center Avenue in the bike and pedestrian plan was listed as a route and paralleling Rock Avenue. And so in the design right now, they have the multi-use path that we see on Rock Avenue. It would be one of the things that we got out of the bike and pedestrian plan was that people wanted those crossings to be more visual. And typically what other communities do is like paint like a green path. So that would be what you'd see on the road. We wouldn't do like a raised table, so to speak, in this area. That one fits. There's some poles that need to be moved, but that fits well in the side, which is also the side that's not the residential side as much. So that is intended to be in the design as well. And so we're going to, I'm assuming, talk more about the bike and pedestrian plan at the next council meeting. So if anything changes there, we could certainly address it, but that's the current approach.
Okay.
Okay, so all of that said, this is what we're talking about in terms of funding. So the whole project, as mentioned, is that 3.7 million. And I've broken everything down, and I don't know that you need to get into a lot of detail with this, but the gist of it is that we have money from the DOT, 932,000. We have money from the DNR, and we're using that to offset costs. And what it turns out as is it gets us actually really close to our normal formula, which is generally water pays for water, sewer pays for sewer, and then we split the rest of the costs a third, a third, a third. The way that the DNR now has it is they have a different formula of what we're allowed to associate to street costs. However, if you associate or split up the DNR grant, pay for all the storm sewer, which is allowable expense, and then spread the rest amongst the streets, it actually basically gets us to almost the exact same amount that the DNR would give us. So it works out pretty well. And again, like we said, if we were to only do 4 lights, it gets us right into the ballpark of where we want to be at for general fund. And general fund is actually TID 6. So there's still lots of stuff to be done, but I would say this should move on to council if you guys are okay with it, to go for bids. Nate and Cheryl and I will continue working on all of this making sense, because there is different things that need to happen, such as some part of it needs to be interim financed, some part of it needs to be borrowed for, which would be the TID portion. And also then the sewer and water would do the Safe Drinking Water and Clean Water Fund, which is a loan and grant combo. So there's all this stuff going on, but we will come back with a confirmed budget that we have and numbers and funding sources. But until that time, I think we're pretty close right now to exactly where we need to be. So
Appreciate all your hard work.
Cindy,
kind of-
Nate here, just
Yes.
I want to make sure I share this with the group. So, Center Avenue is part of the draft capital improvement plan for 2025 to 2029. It's a high priority project. I think it was among, if not the highest priority that the Public Works Committee set for capital improvement projects within the Public Works Department. But I do just want it noted that we are moving towards a project in motion that hasn't been officially approved through the capital improvement plan. That said, for a number of reasons, particularly related to the timing of funding sources that Sarah just laid out, we have essentially committed ourselves to moving forward with this project. And as part of you letting this out to bid, I think there needs to be an acknowledgement from the Public Works Department of that, right? I want to make sure that everybody's aware of that. And in an ideal world, the capital improvement plan would have been approved in 2024, but given the number of projects we were finishing up and we continue to get launched right away in 2025, it hasn't been in the cards. So I don't want that comment to be any way stating that I would be cautious about moving forward with this bid, because I do think this is the right thing to do, and it would be my recommendation to let this out for bid. I just want it to be acknowledged.
Okay, thank you. But you just need us to make a motion concerning the brass and the lights.
Well, I was looking for input on that. The motion that I really need is to move this for bids. But if you guys have recommendations on the lighting, the grass, that would be helpful.
Okay,
Sorry. One more thing I'll say to that is that the capital improvement plan budget is very tight. TID 6 is being asked to carry a lot, and 470 is very much in line with what was submitted in the capital improvement plan draft. 587 or 88, whatever that number was, Sarah, that was if you doubled that amount, would be a significant impact to the capital improvement plan, and would, in my estimation, impact our ability to do some other projects. So I don't know, Sarah, if it makes a big difference going from 8 to 4, whatever the number may be, but from a budgetary standpoint, that is a bigger lift on a capital improvement plan budget that's already a bit strained.
Yeah, that's my recommendation. I really think it makes sense to just do those.
Yeah.
In those
did
stretches.
you have a comment, Adrian?
Yeah, if we ask them to go to bids, can they just give us prices for both decorative lighting and non-decorative lighting?
So what we would end up doing, I believe, and I would want to double check this with Excel, but we would either do like as an additive bid item, either to do it or not do it. Because for us to light it through the power poles, we don't put it in now. Like Excel does that all for us. So we could certainly make that an additive bid item if you'd like. I mean, which means.
And to Crystal's point about the safety of people using that more, you still want to have it lit.
There's
Yeah.
going to be street
Yeah.
lamps.
There will be streetlights no matter what. It's just, do we want the pretty ones?
In addition, though, they would be in addition.
Yeah. It goes along with and is consistent with the rest of the downtown, which is why I'm asking about and it's already there. It's already there in the side streets as well as on Center in some locations. And so that it's the change that I wanted to make sure everybody was okay with, because I don't want to take lights out. This is the time to do it, right? Like we don't want to put all the concrete in and then decide we want conduit underneath all of it later, right? So like we want to do it now, but I think this is a responsible way to go about it. It's still like keeping consistency with what's in the rest of the area, but it's not doing it on center anymore. It just doesn't need to be on center.
Okay, anyone want to make a motion?
This is AJ. I'll make a motion that we go out for bids for the Center Avenue project.
This is Crystal, I'll second.
Is that specific enough?
Yeah, that works for me if it works for
Okay.
Lori.
Motion by AJ, second by Crystal. Any more discussion? Okay, roll call? No,
Aye.
all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 I,
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you. I know that was hard.
Yeah.
It was a confusing one, but trying to
No,
get
thank you.
everything in.
Review and approval of salt shed bids.
Okay, so these did not come in as low as we were hoping. And it was also not unexpected. So we knew that, and of course I don't have what I need. We knew that they were gonna be higher. And let's see, I think I closed this because I knew that we would be tight for time. And we do have ability to accept the salt shed bids for 45 days. So we can actually do this, approve it later, but I'll just go through what we have here for the bid results. Because this is another one that we are gonna have to have a thought about how we're gonna fund it. And Nate can get into that later. I think, again, we'll just look at them today and not necessarily approve them, because there's lots going on. Because we had always assumed that we were going to put $300,000 in, but it is not where it needs to be in our budgeting. So Nate can talk to that next time. But we ended up bidding it, and we had a feeling that it was going to be more than what our original estimate was from one of the local folks that we had talked to. So we had 300,000 was our project budget. So as you can see, just the building alone, this is just the structure itself, is in the 340,000. So our bids came in. These are all different alternates that we were looking at. And based on all the alternates that we looked at, right, where's my Zoom? The one that we came to was that we would have an asphalt floor instead of a concrete floor. That gave us a significant savings. I think it was like 40,000. That we would do the, remove the materials, 2 foot of materials that was needed as a part of it. We would do that in-house. And so that's this $10,000 bid alternate here, that we just had a slightly different style of the metal sheeting, which saved 3,000. The other bid alternate, that was, you could see here, that was a big one, is the length of the building. We had a bid item to look at 100 feet versus 80 feet. And it was a deduct of 50,000. So this was a big one that we spent a lot of time contemplating. There's a couple things to it. One is that we would reduce the building by 20%, but we're only saving 10%, right? So it's not necessarily like a direct cost savings. The other thing is it's actually more than 20% of a storage reduction, because your salt like stacks at an angle, right? Like it's like you pile it up. And so when you end up kind of cutting out the middle more. And this 80-foot version would get us at basically the same amount of salt storage that we have currently. And it's a tricky one. This is like a debate, and the guys feel free to jump in, Wade or Tyrell, but it's hard to know. For the last 3 years, we've had less salt that we've used, but there's so many factors at play. We've had different weather. We have tried some different techniques. but we don't know exactly in all of that, like how much is truly being saved versus the weather that we're dealing with. And we even right now, even with saving the amount of salt that we have and having less ordered, we're still actually storing some at the county sometimes, because even just with the way that like we want to have about 600 tons stored on site, we're still getting in a pinch. And the city's getting bigger. So the recommendation is to go with the 100-foot versus the 80. At this point, you know, if we're building a building of this magnitude and cost, and the idea is that this is our salt shed for until this one falls over, it makes more sense to go with that. So again, we'll come back about accepting the bids because there's financial stuff that we need to go through. But this is the number we're talking about, right? So we got our base bid. So then our final bid ends up being 503. Then we always need our 5% contingency. This is like our soil testing that's needed for the footings and the engineering, which we've already, this was 25,000 originally. I put another 5,000 in just because I know we're getting tight there. And they're nowhere near what a normal engineering fee would be for a project of this size. Usually you're talking 10 to 12%, and this is less. So our $300,000 project we're now looking at is a $561,000 project. So obviously that's not an easy one.
I just like that. If the city's getting bigger, I'd hate to see us go smaller.
That's right.
I just, it just, now's the time to do it if you're going to do it.
I also agree with the larger, and this project bid at absolutely the worst time. I know we bid the trusses for it, and about a month ago was like the biggest scare time for tariffs. So everything was probably marked up a little bit, not knowing what was going to be happening at that time. But just putting my 2 cents in from that perspective, that maybe even sending out for rebid would see an improvement. But
so I did ask about that. I don't know which one you're involved with, but the low bidder at least claims that they didn't have, this was not like a tariff change or something along those lines. And I don't know. We could certainly go back and look at like a comparable, but these were the numbers. This amount was actually what we had been estimated at. Like they had been doing a lot of work trying to find out what they thought it was. And then there was this another element, another bidder that was potential that came in like way, way low compared to the others. And so we were really hoping they would bid, and they didn't. But this was not, the numbers weren't really surprising, unfortunately.
okay, and our trusses are a very minimal point of it. I know we bid it to like 5 different yards and entities. So, but I was just thinking as steel and the material in general might have been a bad window for pricing. But if this is what you were expecting, then and I just still am all on board with getting the bigger building built.
Here, we're running out of time here.
Did
So
we want to table this till the next
Yeah.
meeting?
Yeah, I just wanted to give you guys
Yep.
the food for thought, because we still have
Okay.
a lot of
Very good.
financial work to
Can
do.
I ask Wade,
Yeah.
Tyrell something?
I was
Are you
gonna
guys okay with the blacktop floor?
That's what I was
Concrete?
wondering.
Yes,
Okay, I know we've
I
had
want-
that before in the past.
I wanted to
realize
say
that,
one
but
thing
yeah,
before we
please.
move on. If we want to save $50,000 by reducing 20 feet, 3-4 years from now, when we need that 20 feet, I guarantee it's going to cost more than 50,000 to add
Oh,
on.
absolutely.
And Seth can testify to that with the job he's in. It's going to cost a lot more than 50,000 5 years from now if we need that extra 20 feet. If we don't go with the 100 now.
Agreed.
Okay, so we'll table that. Okay. Okay, motion by Crystal to table it.
Todd will second it.
Second by Todd. All in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
I,
Okay, motion has been tabled. Or, I mean, the review has been tabled. Discussion with possible action on lead service line grant approval.
You go ahead.
Okay,
You
so
can talk about this in your sleep, couldn't you?
sort of. In the ever-changing world and in the interest of saving time,
we will bring back and explain to you kind of what's been happening with the main grant that we applied for in September, which we need to have some discussions on this. This is a little side grant that the DNR has a pot of money, and we actually need to have it either approved or not approved tonight. We're going back to the way we did do things pre 2024. So we had those two grants in 21 and 22, I believe, which were 100% principal forgiveness. This is 75% principal forgiveness, but the requirements are the same as previous. They're not the EPA requirements. So right now we meet all of that. The reason why they're going back is because we do have 5 customers that did have water line breaks between or in 2023 and up to February 2024. That is, excuse me, a total of about $24,400 in costs. So we can get 75% of that as principal forgiveness that we would be able to give back to our customers. However, we would still have to close, and those closing costs are $8,000. We do not want to take any money out of utility funds for this because that involves all the ratepayers, and then that would have to go through the whole PSC thing again. So along the same lines of what we were planning for the 2024 grant is we do want to split those project costs, as we're calling them, which is the closing costs, the interest, which would only be about, the interest would be at $6,100, give or take, be about $20 for the whole year because it's still 0.25% interest. You could pay that off almost right away. We threw in some costs for myself and for Sarah. Dividing that all out, it would be about $400 per customer because we're having to divide this by only 5. The reason why it's so much lower overall than the $230 originally is because we have 75% cost being reimbursed to on our project costs rather than 45%. And there wasn't as many costs as anticipated. So the net result is if we move forward tonight and you approve for us to dip into this other funding that the DNR has set aside, for example, the first person who got their line replaced on August 31st, they paid $5,500. That is an example as of right now because I'm still waiting to hear back from some people. Their net result, they would still get $3,571 back. And it would be no cost to the utility, the way we have this figured out. Do not have to go to the PSC because we've already gone to the PSC and determined that this way of thinking is correct.
That sounds like an excellent plan.
That's a lot in a nutshell.
In
I'm
a
sorry,
nutshell,
but
Okay. I would think we'd want to go ahead with that. Anyone want to make a motion to that effect?
This is Crystal, and I would move that we move forward with the lead service line grant approval.
Let's discuss. Yes.
AJ, I'll second.
Okay, motion by Crystal, second by AJ. Any more discussion?
okay, part 2 will come at a later date
Okay.
when we have time. Thank you
Now,
very
is this
much.
the roll call? Okay.
Andrew.
Aye.
Crystal,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
Seth,
I,
and Todd.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Cheryl, and all of you for all your work on this. And those people are going to appreciate this. Boy. Discussion with possible action on non-lapsing funds for street maintenance materials account from 2024.
Cindy, Sarah, is somebody talking without their mic on?
Sorry, my microphone wasn't on. See, doing too many things at once. I'm not as good at this as you.
Thanks, Nate.
Okay, so going back, so non-lapsing funds is our funds that go from one year to the next, and we get approval to move them from one year to the next. In 2023, we moved over 11,700 and change, and we were able to move it into 2024 to pay for some of the seal coating. This has happened again, where we are going to ask for non-lapsing funds to bring over. We actually had it originally in the budget for 2025. We had $11,000 worth of non-lapsing funds moving over. So that's this number here that we have. So there was a number of things that happened last year. We had a total budget of 135,000 that was called street maintenance materials. And that was for a variety of different maintenance projects, of which would be like our seal coating that we did, which we got here. This is our non-lapsing funds. So we ended up sort of only netting about 30,000 for our seal coating work we did last year. We had county NN last year, so we ended up having 50,000, 53,000, but we ended up getting our LRIP money, which was expected, but was not expected was that we ended up having $15,000 in there for work under the asphalt surface, and it worked out great. They're like, just pave it. So we saved that. The other part is that we ended up having our concrete work on Main Street. So we were expecting to spend $30,000 here. And because of the phasing of Main Street, they just never got it done. And so there was 15,000 roughly of work that was sort of, so to speak, still remaining out there that they'll be doing this year, but we never spent it last year. And lastly, we had Prairie Wind Way, which we were planning on doing last year, and we just never got around to it last year because we ran into complications with Excel and whatnot. So there was a whole bunch of stuff that we had last year that we never ended up spending, is the gist of it.
Not what you usually say, Sarah.
Pardon?
This is not what you usually say.
Right?
Yeah.
This is exactly what you want to hear all the time. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So in total of the allocated funds that we were supposed to spend, we ended up spending about 80,000 of the 135,000. So here I am. We knew that we wanted to carry over 11,000, but we have, in my opinion, unless Nate or Lori says otherwise, we could ask for more. We could ask for up to that 54,763. We certainly would be in a situation where we could use it. And what I wasn't sure of before, and I never got around to asking, is that can it go from street maintenance funds into a different category of operation? Or does it have to stay in street maintenance funds both times?
You need to
When you
specify.
when you say category, you meaning GL?
Yes, sorry.
No.
Non-accounting speak.
What did Lori say?
It needs to be specified for a specific project, not necessarily what account. So as long as you put it in that you're going to be using it for specific things, then it can be used for those specific things.
Thank you.
So I will say that it certainly could be used in the same category. I mean, there's endless road projects, but this is one thing I was thinking about. Do we put the 11,000 that we need for our budget to make up the money that we had budgeted for this year, and then move the other into supporting the salt shed? One option. So I don't know. Those were the two thoughts I had, but I would certainly say that we have use for both of those options.
Sarah, what is the amount of money saved with TID 6? I see how much you're anticipating there, but how much is saved?
So you mean for this, not TID 6, but the street maintenance fund?
Well, you have TID 6 there for pay up 1 and 2, and you're showing some amount of savings coming out of TID 6.
And this was all of the money that should have gone under the street maintenance materials category. So you can ignore, don't look at that if it's distracting you. We spent this amount of money, the 83,000 or 80,000 We had budgeted 135,000. So what the difference is 54,763.
So if you're only dealing with the two GLs, why are you adding the 12,765 into the amount spent?
Because this is money that should have been in that category, but it wasn't. And in that email that I had sent you today, with
Oh, okay.
all of these things should have been in the material maintenance category. But this is me adding up all of the things and where you'll find it. So if you needed to go look at this invoice, that's where the invoices are.
And
the
so
vol-
if I'm hearing you correctly, really, in fact, that money that's showing up in that TID 6 GL, it should have never been in that TID 6 GL and is in fact not a TID 6 expense.
So what it is the pay requests of those. There was a certain amount that was written in there to say this is for street maintenance. It just got all put into TID 6. I mean, it's $12,000 of that total amount, which is
Right.
$6,000 right now.
Yeah, I mean, in the interest of time, Sarah, what I would say is, let the Public Works Committee make a motion, but it should be contingent on me having a chance to have a little bit more time with this. I know you sent it at 1. It's just a lot of material here and a little bit of backtracking with the financials to make sure that you're seeing things right. So I know you're asking for a double check. I just haven't been able to provide it yet.
And
And especially with the TID 6 stuff, if you are planning on using some of this rollover money for the salt shed, TID $6 aren't.
it's not
Oh.
yet. Get distracted by that. No, TID 6. But
I don't have a timeline when this needs to be done because we don't have the audit completed and a lot of these things have to be moved around.
Okay.
These guys just need to make sure that you have it allocated before you spend it.
Mhm.
So it has nothing to do with timeline on my side
I
of
thought
things.
you had asked me to get.
I wanted to know about the non-lapsing funds from 23. That's
Sure.
what I needed to have an answer
Okay.
of before.
But these ones doesn't matter even if it's pre-audit, like post-audit, like, because that was one of the things that seemed to concern me.
I just need to let them know, but there's no timeline on that it has to be done today or anything like that.
Well,
So
we can wait on it if you'd like. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. This doesn't affect what I'm doing.
So we don't need, oh, pardon, go
No,
ahead.
I was gonna say, can we table this
Yeah.
until Nate has a chance to review it?
right.
And then we'll come back with something more clear.
Right,
Sure.
let's
Yeah,
discuss that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we,
As
Motion to
AJ, I'll
ta-
make a motion that we table the non-lapsing fund review till Nate has a chance to look at it.
Todd will second it.
excellent. Motion by AJ, second by Todd. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Review and approval for filling street auxiliary worker position.
Okay, well, we're obviously running up to the end,
7
but
minutes.
I wanted to make sure we had a chance to go through this and at least set the stage of what we're dealing with. And so we've been notified that there is a freeze on hiring, and that in order to rehire a position, we need to ask approval from our committee. So that's why we're here. We have a retirement. We've had it in the works for quite some time, but have been told to just hold tight for a while. So as of the 31st, or I guess it's May 1st, we have a vacancy. And so I think the concern is that budget-wise, they're looking for a significant cut somewhere, and a vacancy is a way to find that. And so I think that's what their consideration is, but we're requesting that we fill the position. There's all the ways we look at it, and we can bring up, all the points that we have, and this is why Tyrell and Wade are here. But it just doesn't work for us to lose a position.
So why don't we
And-
let Wade and Tyrell say something?
Yeah,
That's okay.
absolutely.
Since you're here, you guys want to chime in?
Well, we'll start out with the obvious. The town is getting bigger. We're adding streets, adding more work. As of right now, I could go through every season, but we don't have the time. But just put it bluntly, this time of year, we got one guy all summer sweeping, one guy mowing. Painting season be coming up, that's 3 guys. We got some small projects we want to handle. That'll take everybody. And even if it takes 3 guys, that leaves us with maybe 2 guys with the crew. Snowplow, the winter would be a mess because we'd have to split up one route of the guy retiring with adding streets to the other guy's routes, and that's just the start of it. It's more than just plowing and hauling during them 2 days. It's the prepping for hauling. It's the 2 to 3 days after hauling, the rebuilding chains, changing motor grader blades, snowplow blades, cleaning cul-de-sacs, approaches, sidewalks. And we do more in the winter than just plow and haul. We're cutting trees, we're doing maintenance on all the equipment.
It also has stuff to do with the property maintenance stuff you guys added.
Yes.
If you get rid of a person, I won't be able to do that as much because I'll have to go do other stuff that the guy that's not going to be the position that's going to be filled. So I'll have to do that person's job more than the property maintenance stuff as well.
And we do more than just on the street side. Park and Rec's calling for help. Today I got a call to help out with the utilities. They had a project in town here to do. Like Tyrell said, he gets calls for maintenance for the library, City Hall. Now you had the fire station and the police department. That leaves us with 2 to 3 guys for a crew, and that's not much to work with. So,
especially with the new, like helping cut costs with us tearing out the surface of double N ourselves and stuff like that. That's stuff that takes people, and if we cut people,
that takes all of us.
Is this one of those things we have to make a decision on tonight?
No, I
Be
think
nice to know
and
about
we knew
the
we were gonna
budget
run
stuff.
into time.
Yeah.
But we wanted to put it forward and
Yes, yes.
I
Thank you.
think the bottom line is like right now we use everybody.
Yep.
I mean, that's why we have seasonal staff. And we're gaining more work constantly. We're gaining more roads. We're gaining more things we need to do with them. Like stormwater ponds are now a thing, right? And we never had to worry about a stormwater pond before. Now we have 4 of them, and we're gaining Hanson Farm will have one. We're getting another one with Silverthorne.
Okay,
And like we just continue to get more and more work.
okay.
And so it really means that we'd have to look at losing a service. And the way that our seasonal work is, it's just, there's not really like, if you take out one thing, and I know that some like brushing compost has been talked about, which I would say we should be really discussed because there's a lot of people that use it, but it doesn't necessarily free up a job or a position. And our snow plowing staff are a skilled staff, right? Like we can't just throw anyone in there. And it would be very, very challenging to find someone who would just do that job for us, right? So, okay. I can share this.
Cindy, sorry, I know we're short on time, but I just really want to make sure I can jump in here tonight. Just a little bit of context. So myself, the mayor, Crystal, who serves as the finance chair, have had recent conversations about the tough budgeting times that are coming ahead of us. We've all been through the budget season and we know what that feels and looks like. It's also very apparent that wages in the city are at a pretty bad state. We are beyond below competitive, right? So we are not paying competitive wages to a lot of our employees, and we've just been absolutely thrashed by high inflation over the last 4 years. And so what the real message the mayor and I and Crystal wanted to send to committees as we go through looking at rehiring is that go ahead. We're not saying that this particular position is the one we're targeting. We just don't know that yet. And we need to go through a process over the course of the next 6 to 7 months to identify how we're going to approach the budget so that we can correct some of the deficiencies that we've had. And so we just want to make it known to this committee and any other department that may be looking at filling a vacant position in the next few months that these hard conversations are coming forward, and just be aware of them. But I do appreciate Wade and Tyrell speaking up again. We're not at the point where we're directly targeting this position. It's more about just overall in the city, there's some tough conversations ahead, and we just want every committee to have this conversation early in the year so that when it comes time to really getting into it in June, July, August, it's not the first time you've heard it.
Yes, I wanted to also thank Wade and Tyrell for speaking today. Yes.
You're welcome. One thing before we quit, if we decide, it's been talked about, it's no secret, the brush and compost. I will say, if you decide to get rid of that, get ready, because it's going to be a mess. People will be dropping off everything from there, from fence posts to swing sets to tires. Then we go to push it up, we're going to lose a $3,000 loader tire.
Yeah.
It would just not be good if we got rid of that service.
We'll certainly take all that into consideration. Yes. Okay. So we need to move on to, we're at 6 o'clock, so we're done. We're tabling all the rest. Sorry, no time, second period for public comment. We're past that too. Adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
This is Crystal, I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone.